Here is my review of Fatman, starring Mel Gibson. Should you spend your money or time to watch this movie this holiday season? Let's find out. All right, so I got to start this review off by saying I have been wanting to watch this movie. I have not seen a trailer for it. I knew nothing about this movie or that even Mel Gibson was coming out with a movie up until this movie got released last week. And then I saw it being talked about in some articles online, and it's not getting a good rating by critics. And I'll tell you why when we get to the end of the review. But I think this is really going to resonate with audiences. I'll tell you right now, you can watch this safely at home. If you don't want to go into the theaters, you can actually watch this safely at home. I watched it by renting it through Vudu. I'm eventually going to do a review and a video on Vudu and talk about the ins and outs of the service. But I browse Vudu all the time looking for some amazing deals. And they had this movie for rent today for only $7.99. So I rented it and watched it in my theater. So let's talk about this movie. Fatman stars Mel Gibson as Kris Kringle, and it takes place today in today's times, and he's got a wife named Ruth Kringle, and Santa's not the typical Santa we're used to. He's kind of run down. He's old. Well, Santa's always old, but in this, he seems a little more hardened, but he's as smart as a whip, and he definitely still has his charm. And you see that in a couple of scenes at the beginning of the movie when he's actually in a bar, and there's a girl who's the bartender. The girl's trying to pick up one of the patrons there. And the patron, she goes to the back, and Santa Claus, Kris Kringle, Mel Gibson slides over and asks the guy, how is he doing? He calls him by name and says, she's a good person. A little misguided sometimes, but she's a good person. But how are you and your wife doing and your kids? He goes, if you leave now, you can be home in 12 hours. And he kind of shames the guy into leaving. And then she comes in, has no idea who he is. Well, he's a patron there. She sees Kris there all the time, but doesn't know that he's Santa. And he tells her he took off. Claims he didn't know who the guy was. So she's a little curious. She says, every time you come in here, I end up going home alone, which is pretty funny. Now, this movie had some humor in it. First of all, it's definitely not for the kids either. This movie is rated R, and I didn't know why it was rated R until we get to the end. But the storyline is basically Kris has lost his mojo, and he's very down on himself, and he can't even pay the bills to keep the electricity on. You find out he's been subsidized by the government for many years, and his money is based on how many gifts he delivers. But because the world is getting worse all the time, he's delivering more coal than he is gifts. And so his income has been going down. So what he has to do is he has to subsidize again with the military to build some stuff for them for the next 2 months. And at the same time, this takes place right after, the beginning of the movie is like the day before Christmas. It's Christmas Eve. And then Christmas comes. There's a terrible kid who's 12 years old. He does some terrible things at school, terrible things to people. And you find out that Santa leaves him some coal. Well, this little kid knows an assassin, and he sends the assassin to go after Santa. And that's what the rest of this movie is this assassin getting ready to go after Santa. And he's got to locate him, and he's got to take him down. And all I'm going to tell you is this movie has the line of 2020 in it. There's a line in there where Mel Gibson says, "You think I got this job because I'm fat and jolly?" And from then on, I'm telling you, this movie is crazy. The end of the film is what makes this movie. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm not going to lie. This is going to end up being one of those holiday guilty pleasures. And when it ends, it's a commentary on the way things have gotten in society, I think, and how people are they're not good. There's a lot of bad people out there, that people have become very selfish, all about themselves. And that's why critics don't like this, because it's telling some truths. And it does it in a very interesting way at the end of the film. So is this movie worth the time or the money to go see? I say absolutely. In fact, I give this a 4.5 out of 5 stars, something I wasn't expecting. And I'll tell you, the first 2/3 of the film, it's kind of a 3-star film, but then you go into high gear in that last 20 minutes. And that's what actually ends up making the movie. But again, it's not for the kids. It's definitely, it gets quite violent. But it is really well done. I think they did a good job with this film. Mel Gibson did a good job. And yeah, it's something you won't forget if you see it. So right now, like I said, it is available on Vudu, which is my favorite service to go to rent movies and also to buy TV shows at a massively reduced cost. I like looking for shows when they're at $5 a season or less on there, and you can get them in HD and you can have a collection. And like I said, I'll be talking about Vudu in the future. But there's my review on Fatman with Mel Gibson. 4.5 out of 5 stars. I'd like to hear other people's thoughts. Please leave comments, subscribe, hit that notification bell. And as new movies come out and I'm able to review them, I'll put them up on my channel. And I'd love to hear people chime in and see what they thought of this film. So I hope you guys enjoy it.